The Nintendo Entertainment System is one of the most iconic electronics to emerge from the 80s and 90s. It was so popular that, for a time, Nintendo became synonymous with video games. Its popularity has held out over the years, so much so in fact that, a few years ago, Nintendo released the NES Classic, often called the NES Mini, a system that would become an immediate collector's item. The NES Mini is minuscule compared to the original and includes 30 classic games, but I thought, how much smaller can we push it? This led me to make the NES Micro. Interested in what's in the box? Well, stick around and I'll show you, right after I tell you about the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. Hand wiring your PCBs can be time-consuming, difficult, and hard to repeat with precision. Etching your own circuit boards at home can be hit or miss, and you have to deal with all sorts of harsh, nasty chemicals. Next time, why not let PCBWay do the heavy lifting for you? PCBWay is a fully featured custom PCB prototyping service with over a decade of experience in prototyping and fabrication. Through their website, you can get an instant quote on a wide range of circuit board options ranging from standard boards to flexible PCBs and even fully assembled circuits. Simply upload your design file, place your order, and they'll get to work on it. Many orders are ready to ship within the first 24 hours. First-time customers to PCBWay get a $5 discount, meaning that your first board order is free. Check out PCBWay by clicking on the link in the description of this video. I used the original artwork from the NES retail box to create a miniaturized sleeve for my 3D printed container. Sliding it open, we see the miniaturized controller and the console itself. I shrunk down the design of the NES as much as the board that I used would allow me to, and tried to retain as much detail as I could. It has two USB ports up front for the controllers, with power and HDMI around back. The cartridge flap opens and closes, allowing you access to the microSD slot for easy software upgrades. Moving on, I tried my best to learn from the mistakes of the original NES Classic by including a controller with a cord that doesn't keep you 3 inches away from the unit itself, with a cable that's about 5 feet long. The controller isn't a one-to-one recreation, but I kept the overall layout and aesthetics of the original. And finally, the microSD card comes packed in a miniaturized version of the NES dust sleeve with Nintendo molded into the plastic. With all the parts unpacked, let's take a look at how well it works. Of course, we need something to show actual gameplay on, and I decided to channel the 1980s by 3D printing this miniaturized television set, with added wood grain around the shell. The dials in the front are just for show, at least for now. But keep an eye on this channel for a future video where I add more functionality to the set. And while we're at it, let's use the original Nintendo as the table to set all this up on. There's just something really satisfying about the fact that the entire setup fits on top of it. Oops, we don't want to end up with a fuzzy image. Now all that's left to do is turn it on. I created this custom boot screen based on the loading screen for the Famicom Disk System. It just felt like a good fit. And yeah, the tiny controller works just well enough, letting you navigate through the system. And while it was a little cramped in my hands, I was able to make my way all the way through Super Mario Bros., cautiously slipping under Bowser to deliver the final axe blow and ultimately save Princess Peach. But for the rest of the video, I'll be using this full-sized NES USB controller, because I'm just not willing to sacrifice for my art. Of course, since this system is based on a single-board computer, it's capable of a lot more than original Nintendo games. Game Boy games feel perfectly at home on this system, since the original Game Boy and NES share the same number of buttons on the controller. Mega Man 2 is nice and smooth, and despite the fact that this is a miniaturized TV, the image on here is still twice as big as it was on the original handheld. Super Nintendo likewise is no struggle at all, at least from a performance standpoint. Using the original Nintendo controller just doesn't have enough buttons. So while Mario can regular jump and spin jump, he gives up his trademark run, making for a much slower paced game. Luckily, the NES Micro does what Nintendo don't, channeling all the blast processing you need to deliver the original Sega Genesis games like Sonic the Hedgehog. After going from a Mario game where Mario can only walk, Sonic feels faster than ever. Of course, there's a long list of vintage consoles that will run just fine on here.
Snake, there's an elevator there you can take up to the ground.
Are you interested in finding out what makes it all tick? Well, let's take a look at what's going on the inside. At the core of the NES Micro is the Orange Pi 02, a single-board computer sporting a quad-core ARM processor coupled with 512 megs of DDR3. I broke out the accessible USB ports into the front of the unit from the headers on the board and was even able to cram in a 30mm fan to keep it nice and cool. The power button is wired up, but I haven't decided what to do with the reset button yet. Maybe a return to menu button? Let me know what you think I should do in the comments below. For the controller, I laid out the buttons on a small piece of perf board, and then wired it into a damaged Arduino Micro Pro that I wrote custom software for to allow it to act as a USB gamepad. The TV set is made from a 5-inch 4x3 LCD that I ordered from AliExpress. I designed the shell with easy 3D printing in mind, and it does have a lot of extra space for future expansion or projects. And to give it that extra piece of authenticity, I used some wood grain drawer liner sheet cut to the width of the main body and then wrapped it around. This is the same material I used a while back on my miniaturized Atari to give it a proper wood grain finish on the front. Overall, I love the way this NES Micro set turned out. It's amazing to me that we're able to build something so small but so capable. It has enough space to hold the entire library of dozens of consoles, yet it's small enough to fit in your pocket. What do you guys think with the final result? What would you have done differently? Tell me about it in the comments below. Hey all, thanks for checking out my latest project. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for future builds. And check out one of my previous ones on the screen now, I'm sure you'll love it. And thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make projects like this come together. That's it for this one, but until next time, stay creative.